So, with our first speaker today, I'd like to welcome Gary Foster, who's the Chief Scientific Officer at Weight Watchers, or WW International, formerly known as Weight Watchers. As a reminder, the complete bios for all the speakers are in the handouts that you received earlier today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Foster.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Going back to what Sylvia was saying earlier about specificity and focus, what I'm going to try to focus in on in the next few minutes is messaging for people who are engaged already in a weight loss journey. So that's the perspective. Some of these things spill over into how you get people interested to, quote, sign up or to engage in that from the beginning. Happy to talk about that in the panel, but in the interest of time, the target is people who are affected by overweight or obesity. They are now in a program, and what are our principles for doing that? So I'm going to cover a few things quickly. One is, what are the cultural trends? We've heard it a lot this morning, meet people where they are. One of the biggest lessons for me as somebody who spent 30 years in academia is I thought very little when I was coming up with my new grant or my new intervention about how people would respond. I was chasing efficacy. That's the way the game's played. You get your pilot data, you get the grant, you go. One of my best lessons, I think, is that you could have the most efficacious treatment if you don't have people engaging in it. If they don't find a way to wrap their mind around the problem to be solved, then the most efficacious treatment will have no efficacy, essentially. So what do people want in a weight wellness journey? How do they get there? And some of the practices that we follow. So many in this room have lived this. Especially those of an older generation like myself, but 15 years ago, there was a real emphasis on the thinner, the better. And even longer than that. And health be damned. If I have to do something even that I know is not that healthy or is even maybe patently irrational, but I'm going to lose weight, I'm in. And I'll figure out the rest later. That was 15 plus years ago. WW did work in the beginning of 2015. And this was global work around how did people view a weight management journey. And there were a couple things that had changed pretty dramatically from the decade or so before it. One is they wanted a broad, more holistic approach. What they said to us is, don't mix it up. If I don't lose weight, I'm not interested in any of this stuff. But if I just lose weight, it's not enough. That I need this weight loss journey to make sense to me in terms of my broader, holistic journey. Health's a part of that holistic journey. Emphasis on activity, which in prior decades had been, forget activity, it's not going to help me lose weight. Or maybe I'll be active after I lose weight. They also, for the first time, to my knowledge, were explicitly asking about help with mindset. The way consumers, the public talks about this is, I need help with keeping my head in the game. So a consumer quote that still sticks with me to this day is, what's in my head is just as important as what's on my plate. And this was a sense of shifting, not a before and after, but my mindset at 10 a.m. is quite different than my mindset at 3 p.m. And I need you, not just us as a company or as a brand, but when people are asking for help with a journey, that piece was important. And also, for the first time, at least in my professional history, people were less weight focused. I spent a lot of years of my career documenting how unrealistic people's weight goals were, and there's lots of data to support they are indeed unrealistic. But people are getting more flexible with that, and they were looking at what they called a healthy weight. And for the first time in my career, I heard people saying things like, I'll know when I get there. Before it was, I have to get to 163, I have to get to 185, I have to get to a BMI of 24.9. That by 2015 had stopped. What's changed since then? People are talking about it, the process, that is, of losing weight, even more broadly. They're looking at the benefits of it as more energy, increased confidence. Increased confidence always cuts both ways, because I think we as a brand want to instill a sense of confidence independent of what you weigh. So this isn't a brand value. This is the way people talk about I feel like I walk into a room with more confidence. That's likely, my guess, post hoc explanation about stigma and discrimination. If you're viewed differently based on your size, you might, as a secondary outcome, have more confidence. Focus on food quality, starting to happen in 2015, but people are not convinced that a calorie is a calorie. This does not mean that there's some metabolic benefit of certain types of foods on the laws of thermodynamics or the laws of thermodynamics. My point of view, it's what does that say about overall health? So if weight is your only target, energy balance is the only game to play. If health and weight is your target, or a holistic lifestyle, then calories, 300 calories of, a cookie is the same as 300 calories of fruit. Consumers just don't buy that. And also a balance and a connection to values. What's important to me? This was mentioned earlier about the importance of context, about caregiving, about how I show up in the world for others, about what are my values? Is it being a role model as a parent? Is it being that I want to be active and I want to be vital? I want to live longer, better quality or quantity. So what do people want specifically? They want to lose weight. I've already mentioned that. I won't belabor it. But I just want to give you the impression, if you did all the things on that previous page and didn't lose weight, people aren't interested. So as a company, we have to be really focused on what are the scientific principles and practices that drive weight management. We can't abandon that to do a boosting confidence program, because if you do one without the other, it won't happen. Wellness is a big trend broadly. We spend a lot of time, again, talking to consumers. What exactly does that mean? It means a lot of things. There are three major areas, not surprisingly: mental, physical, and social, and that's the way consumers think about it. When you ask them, you give them a laundry list of things that they want to do. If this would be the first thing, here's a top 10, 20, 50 list. To improve your wellness, what would it be? Nearly 70% of people across the globe pick weight. You'd expect that given the prevalence of overweight and obesity, but I was struck by how close it was. So again, it doesn't mean it's the only thing, or that it would be sufficient, but it certainly is necessary, at least for a majority of people. This is partly why we changed our name, frankly. It's a lot longer story than I have time to get into, but that's partly why we're known as WW, because while we can deliver weight management, people want more, and we frankly think we can offer more, whether it's in the absence or presence of weight loss. So how do they want to get there? They want credible science and common sense. This goes back to the trust things that were mentioned earlier. The kind of stories that are told, the kind of foods that are portrayed make a difference. To the earlier point about negative stereotypes based on people are, they're not going to understand the nuances. People understand nuance. People understand what kind of messaging is being given. And again, this says choosing behaviors over weight loss. These are just popular press notions, the weight loss mindset. And it's got to be something that is livable and also believable. So don't tell me I can eat whatever I want and lose weight. That used to be popular, and I guess in some circles still is. But for the mainstream person who is trying to manage their weight and wellness, if we just showed pictures in our program materials that were pizza, ice cream, other high-calorie, high-fat food, we'd lose believability. On the other hand, interestingly, if you just show salads, not that appealing. Right? Because if that's the price I have to pay, that I have to eat salads for the rest of my life, and only salads. Now, if you show salads and you show pizza, and you show a little chocolate cake, and you show some fruits and veg, and you show, it's real life, and that has a lot of sustainability. And importantly, people, this is going to be touched on in the next slide, but it's about sustainable habits that fit my life. Now, I've heard some very prejudicial statements around this kind of approach that says, what do you mean fit their lifestyle? Their lifestyle's messed up. They should fit our lifestyle, meaning the professionals, the experts. Obviously, that's more than misguided. It's harsh, and it's just not true. The idea that where you meet people where you are is just a behavioral truism. And to try to oppose that and to say that somehow, you have to come from the bad side to the good side is, again, more than misguided. I can't emphasize this enough. People want practical techniques. They don't want an identification of the problem. They don't want even a prescription for a behavior like eat more of this, eat less than that. That's the what. There are gaps based on socioeconomic status. There are gaps based on cultural beliefs. But by and large, most people don't need help with these foods are healthier than these foods. To put it sarcastically, we don't need to do a lot of education about carrots versus carrot cake, banana versus banana split. There are some foods that trick people up about this, but generally it's a game of how, and that's where people are desperate for help, and they want to be self-sufficient. I love this quote from consumers: don't just tell me what, tell me how. Another cultural trend, before we get to some of the stuff we're doing very quickly, is personalization. And it's knowing, there's a lot of ways to do this. It can be the type of food. It can be finding your tribe. We have a very large social network for our members where people can pick, similar to Facebook groups, but we're proud to say we did it before Facebook, groups of people, whether they're new moms, whether they're people who are losing weight slowly. There's just a zillion. Age, geography, lots of different things. Travelers, etc. So our programmatic approach, as you might suspect, is to start with what consumers want and then go find science to serve that. They say, I want to lose weight while I sleep. Sorry, can't deliver on that one. No science there. But there are things, like all the things you just heard, where we could bring the best of science to solve what we call consumer problems. This is a thing I want to spend just a couple minutes on because it goes to a lot of the stigma and discrimination stuff that has been appropriately and I think well discussed this morning. This is what we call a voice of brand or a tone of voice document. And there's a lot of things that wouldn't be surprising. It would be warm versus restricting. But I think the stuff on the right is even more important about the language we use around people who live with overweight and obesity. We don't use the word overweight or obesity. As Rebecca said this morning, the word is very clearly not useful for people who have the condition. There are situations, again, to Sylvia's point, who are we trying to talk to? Disease talk, obesity talk, probably appropriate for lots of audiences, but not for this one. Before or after, we've stopped using those terms because that means it's over. Like there was a before and this is an after and I'm done. This is a journey. So we probably overuse the word journey and we say then and now because there could be a different now 6 months from now or 6 minutes from now. And to say that this is Patty said it earlier, this is a lifelong journey and we have to be very careful about not overpromising that at the end of X weeks, months, years, it's done. We say things like plan, it's a way of living. We're really insistent on avoiding moral language. And this is a difficult one as a consumer brand because consumer brands follow what the consumer says. Whatever the consumer says is right. I never worked with a patient or have rarely been in groups with our meetings, workshops with our members where I haven't heard the word cheat. So if we were a consumer-based brand, we would say, like, this is what you do to avoid cheating. We have to say as a leader in the category, we're not going to endorse that stereotype. That, to me, is a great example of internalized bias. Think about that word cheat. Think about if you got a call today that one of your kids or grandkids was caught cheating. You worry about their moral compass. You worry about your role as a parent, perhaps. Think if I thought right now that I got a call that my wife was cheating when I was in Washington, D.C. Like, these are pretty harsh, it's a pretty big deal, right? So how did eating a bag of whatever get to be a measure of your moral character. It's nonsense. So we are constantly, and I should say our content team is constantly making sure that we don't use anything like good, bad, cheat, indulgence. And again, these are the best of intentions. Here's an excuse-proof plan to be active. So what are we saying? We're saying that people are about making excuses? Like, we can't do that. It's just not appropriate. And as Patty also said, it doesn't help the journey if you do. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on exactly what we do. Happy to talk about it, but those principles influence how we show up as a brand and as a program. And one of the things I think that is most important on the mindset front, and I'll end with these last two slides, is the consumer insight is I need help with mindset. We've got to blend that with the science. What's one of the things that derails a weight management journey is self-criticism. Marlatt discovered this many years ago, lots of good science around relapse prevention. How do you do relapse prevention? It starts with a fundamental belief in your own worth and self-compassion and your ability to expect imperfections. Why is it that many people on a weight management journey can expect imperfection in their personal relationships, their work performance, but somehow when it comes to weight management, they have to be perfectly adherent? So the science piece of this is we've got to go find techniques that have been documented to empirically improve self-compassion. And we've got to look for literature that builds the bridge from practicing self-compassion to an improved weight or wellness journey. And that's a lot of what our team does. So this is one example of that. Another is body positivity that was already mentioned earlier. So we take pride in doing this globally, portraying pictures. And again, this is Tom Cash's work. We're not just making up, think these thoughts and have a good body image. These are things that are empirically proven, independent of weight loss, to improve body image. By the way, paradoxically, counter to the Bill Maher nonsense, the better you feel about your body at the beginning of a journey, the better you do on the journey. It's not like hating your body is helpful. It's actually harmful on a lot of reasons, but particularly for a weight management journey. Finally, one of the things that's of interest to me, and we're just mimicking what people are telling us, this is our social network, our number one hashtag is NSVs, which stands for non-scale victories. I think it's a real testament that if we're, as a roundtable, as a broader society, are trying to help people engage in a weight management journey, that some of the most important outcomes have nothing to do with a number on the scale. This one on the upper left, best non-scale victory yet. I stepped out of my comfort zone and stepped into the pool. My baby girl screamed with excitement when she saw I had a swimsuit on and was joining her in the pool. That was the best victory so far. I got in and kept saying to myself, I'm in the pool, I'm in the pool, I'm in the pool. I had a great time with my daughter for 40 minutes before her swim class. Interestingly, I didn't show her picture because it's an internal website and we didn't have time to get her permission to show her picture. She's well over 300 pounds. Less than 3 weeks into the journey. Those are the things I think that matter, that will drive weight loss success, along with these other skills. But I hope that we don't forget, in our effort to improve health and comorbidity and all the stuff we know as scientists, yes, weight loss does drive that. And again, if we do all this without weight loss, people aren't interested. But these are the things that ultimately matter. Thanks for your attention.
About one question. I'm just going to ask a question that we had thought you might be able to address. Sure. And as you talk a little bit about body positivity, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how that affects your marketing trends.
I wouldn't say that it directly affects marketing, and I will be careful with a caveat. I don't lead marketing at WW. I lead what the program is and how we talk about it. What I do think about body positivity is that we're very careful about the images we show, both in marketing materials and in programmatic materials. And it echoes a lot of what other people said this morning more eloquently than I, about diversity of body shapes, about diversity of ethnicities, about diversity of genders, and really trying to make that important. What we do programmatically is to make sure that we debunk the myth. There's a lot of nonsense around, like, the harsher I am on myself, whether it's if I call myself weak-willed or lazy, or I berate my body in the mirror, that actually that stuff's helpful. So it's probably less marketing driven and more once somebody is engaged in the program that we help minimize that self-criticism and enhance self-compassion.